Hello, welcome back. Just did a video about subtlety, being subtle in whether it be your thoughts or your actions, physical actions, and how that subtlety can add up, and make a big difference. So in this one, I want to address an act of observation. Now, you can have your thoughts, your subtle thoughts, your big thoughts, not so subtle thoughts, and not so subtle actions, or subtle actions. But before all of that happens, you have to consider that you're going to observe, excuse me, you're going to have to make an observation, whether it be consciously or subconsciously, before you make a decision on whatever act it is you're going to do, whether it be a physical or mental, as in thought action. But observation in some instances, in some examples, could actually produce action. It produces the action of thought. Observation can produce or can result in taking physical action to do something. So a lot of times just the observation of something is enough to realize that it may not be exactly the action that's being performed, may not be the action that you want it to be, or in the way that you want it to be. So the act of observing plays a key role in the way that we follow through in our existence. And a lot of what we deal with, a lot of us deal with in societies, is something that actually distracts us from or noticing much of what we observe, or it affects our reaction or our thoughts that we are having at any particular given time. So the act of observation should be a conscious act, not necessarily a natural act. And this is if you're trying to make changes in your life and you've decided, hey, I want something better, I want something more beneficial for myself and for the environment around me. It takes a bit of consciousness, and the whole idea of expanding your awareness, expanding your consciousness. This is what this entails, is to be conscious and to make concerted efforts at observation and acts of thought. And you start off with your little small actions at first if you aren't used to it. And if you're diligent and disciplined, then you carry on with it day to day. It can be minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, what have you. But it's something that if people aren't familiar with, they have to build up to this so that it becomes a perfectly natural, intuitive thing to do. And along this line, I'm going to throw this in there as well, for people that may be familiar or be of a religious leaning or whatever. And in Christianity, I'm not sure about the other religions, but there's always offerings and stuff like that in religions. But the act of tithing, and tithing supposedly is giving 10% of your income, to the church or whatever religious organization you might belong to. But I would like to say that tithing, in my opinion, could be just I'm trying to think of the word, but it could be just applying, say, 10% of your thoughts throughout the day to in a beneficial way to that is of benefit for yourself and of the environment around you. What's of benefit to yourself and what's of benefit to the environment around you? Well, I think that that's something that you need to come up with, because to think of owning the best of whatever that cost a great deal of money, that would be beneficial to you at that, with that mindset, but that's not necessarily beneficial to your environment. And I'm not going to go any further into that, but yeah, tithing, 10%. Also, there's somebody that has done a video, Bill Donahue, and that's spelt with an A, not an O. He did some videos back in the 90s that are very, very enlightening, I thought. And it was describing how the Bible possibly could be, among other things, relating to the actual function of consciousness and how the brain works. And tithing, in his sense, how he explained it, was that you used, because the saying is that we only use 10% of our brain or whatever at any given time, which I think that's kind of been debunked, but probably taken together as a whole in what your brain is doing processing, it might be that it's only 10% of that being used. But the way that it was explained is that 10% of the brain usage be put towards an expanded awareness of your environment and of yourself, your life, your existence. So if the rule is to give up 10%, hey, what's 10% of the thoughts that you have during the day? What's 10% of the thoughts of the actions you take during that day? What is the 10% of your efforts in this existence? So why does it necessarily have to be 10% of an income? 10% of an income, monetary income, in my opinion, is just trying to cultivate, stimulate more of this idea of monetary richness, or that leads usually to mammonism, I call it, greed, materialism, no thoughts given to or about others, no thoughts given to or about the environment for whatever reasons, except for the ongoing efforts to acquire more and more of these, whatever type of monetary device is used. So anyway, that's about all I have on that. Remember, make the conscious efforts and be mindful of all of the subliminal influences that may distract you from your conscious observations, and you know, don't necessarily try to move the world or change the world in one action. Maybe some subtleness, some subtlety is required, being subtle, and diligently and disciplinedly following through with that mindset, those thoughts, the act of thinking, the act of consciousness, the act of physical action, acquiring, on the way to your acquiring that more beneficial existence in this environment. So thanks for watching. Talk to you later.